How are you going, Philip?
There you go, Liz.
Today's topic, we're just going to be talking about the next generation,
Absolutely.
kids today. I suppose my question for you is, kids today, do they have, I suppose, the same upbringing as their parents or their parents' parents? Are they being formed as adults, do you think, in an adequate way?
Well, I don't think so. I think this is a worrying trend that children are being over-coddled, and they're therefore not developing into adults and developing their personality and developing who they are, connecting to their essence, and really coming alive in who they are, connecting to their truth. And I think this is very important, and I think parents have an important role to play in terms of forming their children. The Bible says, train your child in the way it should go, and when it is old, it will do the right thing.
Do you think part of that problem is education system, like the system that kids are being brought up in? Do you think they're not being raised enough by their parents, or do you think it's too much the other way, where they're being raised by government, their friends?
Absolutely.
Not actually, by their mum and dad.
So this is a real problem there, and they're compromising who they are, because they're over relying on other people for their identity instead of looking within themselves. God is within, and this is what I'm all about. And the parents have a role in forming the child in terms of their values, but then at some point the child has to become an adult, and the parents need to step aside and allow that to happen.
But how can kids have that happen if they're not brought up in those values?
Exactly. So
they don't feel safe in that.
Absolutely. So the parents have that role to play, but then they need to allow the child, once they reach the age of 12 or 13, they're no longer a child, and they need to make the decision to follow the Lord on their own.
See, if a parent was to hear that, they would go, no, my child's only 12 years old. I'm still going to do everything for them. I'm going to still be their parent. Do you think that's harmful to the child?
Well, I think over-parenting is harmful. I think the child, or the not really a child anymore, it's spiritually it's an adult. It's no longer a child. And we see this in other cultures that, when they reach the age of 12 or 13, such as in Jewish cultures, they're considered to be an adult. They're considered to be a man or a woman. So unfortunately, we don't have this tradition in our culture, and it's for the parents to continue to parent the child as they have been, as if it were a child, still a child, can actually be detrimental to the child's spiritual growth. Can actually damage the child. And what the child or the adult needs to do, that from age 12 or 13, it needs to develop its own relationship with God, and its own identity, its own spirituality, its own prayer life, and find itself in God. And it should be allowed to make its own mistakes. And the parents really need to step aside and allow that process to happen.
So you're saying the earlier they make mistakes, the better, in a sense?
Absolutely, because that's part of developing who they are, and they need to develop that relationship with God. If they're going to know, they need to seek God to know what He's calling them to do for the Lord, and because they can be called at an early age to give themselves in a radical way to the Lord. And for example, to offer themselves as to become a nun, or even to marry.
And I think when parents, just to add to that, when they give that child those responsibilities, and they sort of have more faith in the child, then the child is able to step up, and the child is able to find value in themselves.
Exactly. But if the child is never able to grow into an adult and is forever coddled by the parents, this is really damaging. The child never learns to be self-reliant, to be responsible for itself, and to develop its own personal relationship with God,
and to be confident in who they are.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important, because it reminds me of kids. They turn 18, they go, I can drink, I can go out, but it's almost like, okay, I can be irresponsible now, because I've been coddled this whole entire life, and now I'm just going to do whatever I want. And suddenly they don't know what to do with that freedom, because they've never been given those roles up until that point.
Absolutely. So you can see how that bond with the parents, when it continues longer than it should, the parents have been given an important authority by God. It says, children, obey your parents. So that there's an important authority that's been given to the parents, spiritual authority over their children, right? while they're children in order to form them. But then, when they reach a certain age, the parents really need to step aside and allow that child to develop its own, relationship with God, independent of the parents. And, that spiritual bond with the parents needs to be broken in order for that, to allow that to happen,
Okay, great. Well, it's been a very in-depth and interesting conversation with you, Phil, and hopefully we can explore this topic a little bit more in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Lizzie.
Thank you.
Thank you.